Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Viaka Podcast. This is where we bring you fantastic conversations with very inspiring founders, investors, and builders who have ties to the MENA region and are really making waves in the entrepreneurship space all over the world. Today, we are super excited to host Amjad Ahmad, managing partner at 500 Global, which is one of the world's most active venture capital firms. Amjad leads the MENA Growth Fund, which focuses on scaling transformative technology companies. Over the past 2 decades, Amjad has deployed more than $1 billion across emerging markets, backing companies in technology, consumer, healthcare, education, and finance. Now, beyond investing, Amjad is deeply committed to ecosystem building, and I can, I've witnessed that firsthand. He's engaged in as a mentor in so many different networks in the MENA region, in the US, all over the world, really going out of his way to support founders of all stages. He also teaches in 500 Global's venture education programs, helping to train the next generation of VCs and angel investors worldwide. He also serves on the boards of Amid East, HomSmart, and Koita Foods. Amjad, it's such a pleasure to have you on the Viaka podcast.
Thank you, Reem. It's great being here and love talking to you as usual.
Yeah. This is going to be a fun conversation. I always love chatting with Amjad to get updated on what's happening in the MENA region, and in terms of the ecosystem landscape, what's happening, startups, the fundraising landscape, all those exciting developments. Amjad, you're based in Washington D.C., but you also lived in the region for many years, right? Maybe you can just tell us a bit about your background, what you did in the UAE, and then your move to the US. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks again for having me. So after a long career as an investment banker here in the US, went to the MENA region about 2002 and stayed there for about 17 years, primarily focusing on growth capital. I was one of the founders of National Bank of Kuwait's NBK Capital, which is the private equity arm. We did typical private equity growth capital. We also launched private credit, one of the first in the region, which is now booming, which is great to see. And then moved to venture in about 2015. My background in investment banking was in technology, so I kind of went full circle. Frankly, when I first got to the region, there wasn't much in terms of tech, so it was nice to start seeing it.
Just 10
And of
years
course,
ago, that's what you're saying, right? 10 years ago.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we started seeing a little bit in 2012, 2013, and I started mentoring. Entrepreneurs would approach me about helping to mentor, so I did that, and then saw a real opportunity to sort of shift to venture, more early stage, and specifically
Mhm.
tech, which was really exciting at that time. And here we are today. So I joined 500 Global almost 4 years ago, primarily to launch their growth platform. As a firm, the ethos of the company, the sort of foundation of the company for the last 15 years was seed. Very early stage. We were the first check in a lot of founders. And frankly, we were very global. One of the first VCs to really go global. Our first investment in MENA, believe it or not, was 2012. So we've been
Oh,
in the region for a very long time. So here we are today, and I came on board to really launch sort of a growth platform to think about how do we start capturing some of the value in the startups that we were investing in early. Just to give you some perspective, globally, we've done about 3,000 startups. 35 of them have reached unicorn status, and about 150 are over 100 million in valuation. So a lot of value,
wow.
but we weren't sort of getting that value later. So we decided why not to start building growth funds to be able to capture some of that value.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you said, you're one of the most active VCs in emerging markets globally, and now you're you just launched the MENA fund. Can you tell us a little bit more about the MENA fund, your thesis, and all the activities that you're prioritizing in the region? You've completed two investments also, so tell us a little bit about
Yes,
that as well.
absolutely. So the gap we saw in a lot of emerging markets, not just MENA, was once founders get the seed and A, and start hitting the B series, that it was very challenging to put together a large round. And when you go to beyond that, it gets worse, right? The C and D was very challenging. So we felt that there was a nice gap to do deals where, companies were raising a series B, maybe a large A where they have product market fit, but they're raising 20, $30 million. So we felt we could fill some of that gap. And that's what we decided to do. One key feature about us is that given our seed platform is so prolific in terms of investments, we have 300 investments we've done in MENA only. So it helps me sort of get a lot of visibility into who's doing well, what models are working, what models are not working. So that gives us a lot of power to sort of filter out those sort of what we call category winners. And that's really what I'm after. Companies that I feel can scale aggressively in the region and maybe beyond. Our first two investment, one, Salasa is a very well-known company in Saudi Arabia. People position them as a logistics company, but really what they do is they enable that long tail in merchants to frankly get online and digitize, right? From A to Z, literally from getting online all the way up to delivering their goods. So really exciting opportunity. We're seeing a lot of brands emerge from the region, and now they want to go, across not only the region but the world. So that sort of cross-national goods movement is very critical. International companies now taking the Saudi market very seriously in terms of goods. So not only do we see a strong sort of domestic market for goods, but also that sort of cross-border coming from international and regional companies. The second company is really exciting too. It's an AI company that won't surprise you with all the AI
Of
investment
course.
that's happening. What's unique about Intella is that they're really focusing on solving a unique regional problem, which is the Arabic dialect, right? So they're doing speech to text, which is very challenging. This is not text to speech, right? This is hearing a voice, interacting in voice across dialects, which, as you can imagine, is very challenging.
Yeah.
I think their accuracy rate is the best in the world today against some of the big players. And now they're creating different solutions for different verticals. So banks, telcos, e-commerce. They just came out with a really exciting voice for e-commerce. They just came out with one for F&B. So you can literally order by talking to, a virtual person. So as you can see, a lot of the things we're looking at are solving very deep regional issues, right? And we feel there's a huge opportunity to build unicorns doing that. I think this take of you have to build global is okay, but not necessarily. Our markets are big
You
enough
feel that
to create
there's
unicorns.
plenty of opportunity and space for companies
Absolutely.
to just, focus on the MENA market and try to solve for those markets?
Well, that's what we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you see all of the unicorns that are being built today, I struggle to name one that built for global. You know, Tabby, Katopi,
Yeah.
Foodex, Stella, Tamara,
They're all building
I mean,
for one specific market. Yeah.
Iowa.
Yeah. Yeah.
They all built for our markets.
Mhm.
And what it shows you is we've underestimated the opportunity in our markets, right? Some of these verticals are quite large, right? And and I think we underestimated another thing, which is um, the capability of local firms to build enough barrier to entry to lock out international players, right? I think Kareem was the best example of that, right? I saw that whole journey, um, from the beginning when they were just a black car service to where they became ride hailing. And I remember people saying, "Oh, Uber's going to kill them. Uber's going to kill them," right? And Uber ended up having to buy them for $3 billion, right? And it's because they solved the problem in a very deep way locally, right? And their biggest advantage early on was they were accepting cash, and Uber wasn't, right? And really that unlock, bought them the Saudi market, right? Effectively. So you're seeing very unique models. Another thing I would mention is I would argue some of the models in the region are more profitable than the models outside, which again I think highlights something for us VCs to pay attention to, which is a model that might have 15% take rate outside could possibly have a 25-30% take rate in the region because of structural issues, right? And inshallah you'll see Tabby go public next year. What you're going to see is it's probably one of the best buy now pay later in terms of unit economics in the world, if not the best.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Amjad, very, very interesting. I mean, you've been you've really had a front row seat to the ecosystem, and you've really seen how it has matured over the years. And when we're talking about the region, we're really talking about many different parts of the region.
correct.
Unfortunately, we continue to be very siloed as a region. You have, even within the GCC, scaling across markets is challenging. You have different dynamics, different regulations. The Levant, Egypt, North Africa. So it's not really one coherent market. So you're saying it's very promising, and you're talking about it as a region. Are you just saying we're focusing on the Saudi market, or is there really the potential to scale across all of those markets? Can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of all
Sure.
those different markets as well?
Look, I think like any other place, the region, we can't talk about it as one generalist approach, right? The reality is most of the unicorns being built today are primarily in Saudi, UAE, and I would say possibly Egypt, right? Scale matters, right? These countries have scale, whether it's people or GDP. They have depth. So obviously there'll always be that bias, in my opinion. Now, a big challenge we continue to have is that the region is not integrated. And it's sad because I think that there could be a win-win if it was integrated, right? If it was easy for me to help a founder scale from Saudi to Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, wherever, the way a startup in the US moves from New York to Florida to across the US, and frankly, they all benefit. I think there's a misconception that it's a win-loss, but it's not. It's a win-win. I think the smaller countries need to do a better job of positioning themselves effectively. I'll give you an example. People who are building in Saudi and the UAE can definitely use talent from Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, everywhere, right? And not only that, yes, they are small markets, but I don't think a startup in Saudi would be averse from opening in Jordan if it was easy to do.
Already, Amjad? Isn't this happening? I mean, I know Jordan is positioning itself as like the back office or,
Yes.
engineering office. This is already happening, no? But it could happen.
I think to some degree. I think Jordan is doing a good job. I think other countries are trying, but let's be honest, it's not as open as we think, and it's still costly to set up, right?
Yeah.
So
why is that? How can we break those barriers? How can we,
Look, I think we're talking about decades here, protectionism, right? You have to remember that a lot of these economies approached the economy in a protectionist manner, right? Very nationalistic, very worried about their national banks, their national telcos, their national champions, rightfully so, right?
Yeah.
But I think with digital, they might be missing an opportunity, right? And I think they need to rethink some of these policies. I mean, I would love the region to be so integrated where, it's like Europe, where you can launch from one country to the other. I think it'd be very powerful. And by the way, don't forget, we have currency issues. The GCC is so much easier to operate, because as a dollar-based investor, I have zero currency issues to think about, right?
It's always the same. It's been
If you
on.
correct, Ramzi, right? If you invested in Egypt 5 years ago in dollar,
Yeah, so
your
volatile.
company the company
Yeah.
might have grown by a CAGR of
Yeah.
50 or
But your
100,
investment might have
but
dropped.
you stood still, right?
Yeah.
Look, I've felt this personally. I was,
Mm.
in my private equity days, I was a big investor in Turkey,
Mhm.
and when we first started investing in Turkey, it was $1 was 1.3 Turkish lira. By the time we were exiting, it was approaching 10. So, you lost money because of the exchange rate, right? And so it does bring complexity. We have to remember that. But going back to the point, I think integration is super helpful, right? And I
Yeah.
think, again, we should think of it from a win-win situation, right, rather
Yeah.
than a win-loss.
Yeah.
Look, not every country is going to be able to have the amount of startups and unicorns that a Saudi does or UAE does. It's just scale. It's a
Yeah.
scale issue, right? But a great example is Sweden, right? What a
Mhm.
great
Mhm.
test case Sweden is. Small country, but think about all the fantastic global companies they built. Forget about European companies, right? So I think they're a great example of how, a small economy with dynamic education system, open to other
Understood their
markets.
positioning and went
What,
after it.
what did they
Fantastic,
do? What are
fantastic.
some things? What are some things we can learn from Sweden?
Well, one thing, it's open to the European market, right? It's very integrated into those markets. Two is they just have a very dynamic education system, right? And entrepreneurial spirit.
Talent
And
pool.
Mm.
Yeah.
exactly. And their founders think global first. No
Mhm.
founder there is thinking I'm building locally, right? They think
Mm.
I'm building for Europe. I'm thinking I'm building for the globe, which, I think our region can do as well, right? But where it's difficult is, for a founder today to sit in Amman and say, I'm building for the region, he runs up against barriers, or she runs up against barriers, right? So what do? They shift their headquarters to Saudi Arabia or
Not
to
just one
the
headquarters,
UAE.
Amjad. I know so many companies. I mean, they were mandated to have an HQ
Of
in
course,
Saudi if they want to do business with the Saudi government. They
of
need to have an
course.
HQ in Qatar and an HQ in the UAE, and it's ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, it's just very expensive, costly.
Absolutely.
So how do we get over
Now,
this?
on the positive note, I've seen barriers reduced. So we have to give credit where credit is due. It's not the same as it was 10 years ago. Um, I, I think cost of establishing a startup has dramatically come down. Not a little bit, a lot of it.
And now with AI,
Um,
significantly more. Yeah.
I mean, we can get into AI, but what we're seeing today is that a company with 5 people can go a long way before they have to raise a large round. And a company that has 20 people can wait a little bit longer. So there are a lot of efficiencies that are happening, and people are able to build a lot faster and a lot cheaper, right? So you're really only constrained by your ideas, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is very powerful, but it also means something about our capital, right? I mean, my gut feeling is because of AI, rounds should actually get smaller, um, because you just don't need that much money anymore at the early stages to do much more, right? So I think there's going to be a dynamic where it's going to the ticket sizes. It might get very interesting to see how tickets end up trending, right?
Yeah.
So something to watch.
We'll definitely delve into AI technology and what's happening in the region. But before we switch gears, just to talk a bit more about the ecosystem in the MENA region. Just how are you? Can you tell us a little bit about the biggest challenges and opportunities facing founders
Sure.
today? And I'd love to know if there are any promising, let's say, sectors that you're specifically excited about.
Sure. So Look, I think the biggest challenge persists today, which is talent. Um, and we have a lot of people in the region, but that doesn't mean we have the right talent in the region. I think there's a gap. Definitely on the technical side, there's a gap, right? I think we have, good marketing, good finance, but when it comes to tech, like we're talking about CTOs, technology experts, data scientists, we have a gap. And it's tough to recruit, right?
Yeah.
And we need those types of people. So I think the education systems unfortunately take time. I think they're getting better, but this is not something you could just turn on and off, right? This
Right.
is something that I think we as nations have to make a massive investment in, right? I think two is I'd love to see more R&D spending locally because when you look at the US, the R&D spend here drives a lot of innovation, right? And I'm talking about R&D within companies and within nations, right?
Educational,
Mm.
higher education institutions.
Mm.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. So we missed that a little bit. I mean, when you look at the numbers, I mean, it's scary, right? I mean, what Apple spends on R&D, I think, is bigger than the entire region.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a bit frightening, but the reality is a lot of the companies don't do R&D, right? They're just doing trade and they're not doing innovation. So I think we need more companies and incentives to do R&D. I mean, the US, as you know, there is an incentive to do R&D, right?
Yeah.
There's a tax incentive. There are other incentives. So we need more of that because again, that creates sort of a flywheel of innovation, right? The education systems, the R&D, the startups, all of that creates this very unique system that we need. So I'd love to see more of that because I think we need more people. I think the immigration has been helping. I mean, especially in the UAE, that the doors are wide open in the UAE
Yeah,
for
the golden
talent.
visas and absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're seeing founders move to the UAE to launch things, which is interesting. But we still need more local technical talent. I mean, I think that's the one thing you constantly hear from founders. I think the other challenge is something we already mentioned, which is policy and regulations and the integration of the region. It's challenging, right? It's not easy for them to say, I'm in Saudi and I want to go regional tomorrow. Let me go open up in all 22 Arab markets. It's
Yes.
hard. It's almost impossible, right, to do, and it's expensive. I mean, you can do it, but it's expensive. I mean, Kareem did it, right? But when you talk to Mudassar and Magnus, they'll tell you it was expensive and brutal to do, right? Now, keep in mind, it does act as a barrier to entry, right? So it does lock out or let's say disincentivize a lot of foreign companies from wanting to come in because it's just such a complicated region. So there is that, right? But I think I'd rather see it open up. I'd rather see the region be much more integrated. But that is another challenge. I think the third, which we mentioned, but I think even beyond the B stage, you know, we really don't have capital providers that can do what um, you know investors have done with OpenAI or with Uber back. And what I mean by that is if you think about the massive private capital that goes into the US startup world today, it's astonishing. We don't have anywhere near that. And what that does is I think it forces startups to make hard decisions, right? And frankly, you mentioned, companies going global. Well, how do you go global if you can't raise, a 500 million, $1 billion round? Because that's what you need, right? So do we have that capability? I don't see it today, right? Like I can make the argument that Tabby could be a global buy now, pay later because he does it better than anyone else. Can he get 2-3 billion today from the region? I don't know.
Probably.
I don't think so.
No,
I think
there are
he'll get
no.
it from out. No, I'm saying region. I'm not saying
Okay.
external to the region. I'm saying, Kareem, back when Kareem was, as an independent company, if it could have raised $1 billion in capital from a local investors, I doubt they would have sold to Uber. Right? I think they would have kept going and trying to build a super app, right? Which is what they really wanted to do. So, I mean, look, we don't have that capability today. I mean, you just don't see it today, right? And it does make a difference, right? When you're trying to build global, it does make a difference. And look, I'm not saying every startup deserves it, but there could be startups that start in the region that might deserve giving them that chance to say, wow, this is a great founder with a great model. Can we give them $1 billion to expand? You just don't see that. You don't see those kind of numbers. By the way, I'm mentioning the extreme, but I mean, we don't have people writing 100 million, right?
That's true.
So, it's challenging. I mean, look at the rounds that have been done recently in those ranges. Without an international investor, you can't get those kind of rounds done.
I have a question, Amjad. Go back to talent. I was talking to Reem about this earlier. We were saying the highest concentration of AI talent is essentially either in the US or in China. What does this do for the region? If let's say we were to create some sort of initiative or movement to kind of have our own talent that could actually contribute to that type of industry, what would nations today need to do? What would they need to implement? What do you think in terms of policy, in terms of education?
So look, I think AI, it's interesting because it seems the region has really caught on AI very early, which I'm really excited about. Like when you see the initiatives by the UAE and Saudi and others.
Do you think we can catch up?
I'm excited. Catch up is a big word, and I guess the question is what do we mean by catch up? I mean, look, I was telling Reem, we have to dispel this notion that we need to be the US or we need to be China.
Okay.
We're not,
right.
And let's be honest here, we cannot be. I mean, you cannot. And by the way, nothing bad about that. I mean, no other nation. The US is a $30 trillion economy. Okay. I'm just going to put this into perspective.
And it has a different DNA, makeup, dynamic, culture. It just doesn't make sense completely.
Right.
It's capitalism on steroids,
But let's just talk about like just tech in general. You have a $30 trillion economy. I mean, listen to that. Just we have, I don't know the count today, but 5 to 6 companies that hit 3 trillion in market cap. Just to put into perspective, that's bigger than the Saudi and UAE economy put together. That means Apple is bigger than the 2 biggest economies in our region together.
Yes.
That's not separate. So we're not going to be the US, right? So when we say catch up, I think we have to be careful. Can we be very competent? Yes, right? And we have some advantages in AI, right? Like energy for one, because it's very energy intensive, right? But, we need chips. And right now, chips are bought with NVIDIA. Can we build our own? Highly doubtful.
Probably.
I mean, we don't have the scale, right? So, but can we build data centers so our local population has like a lot of AI capacity?
We are.
100%. And they are, right? So I love what's happening in AI because I feel like they picked up on it quickly and they said, this is the future. And we're going to be players in this, right? And what that means to me is give the local population know-how. I think the UAE mentioned that they're going to put AI in sort of the curriculum from K through 12, right? We need more of that. We need young people to use it, get excited about it. Start being creative, start being entrepreneurial.
Leverage AI, definitely.
Leverage AI.
Replacing you, it's just making you more efficient, more competent.
Absolutely. So just to put it in a structured format, government should build infrastructure because that's frankly required. Private sector cannot build the infrastructure. We need them to do it. But they should leave then the private sector to build on top of that infrastructure, right? Build an Arab LLM, which is they're doing fantastic. Build AI capacity, fantastic. Negotiate with NVIDIA to give us more chips as nations, fantastic. But the reality is that education and getting people using AI is a must. There is a weird part of this that I'd like to mention. At a time where our region was making headway in terms of diversification of economy and entrepreneurship, there is a scary part of this, which is AI is, in my opinion, reducing employment.
Mm.
So there is now going to be a friction of, we wanted to create jobs, so we were boosting entrepreneurship, and
How
now
much
AI
government wants
is,
to support it, because it will eventually create a social ticking bomb among young people who are,
which
graduating, looking for jobs. Yeah.
right, which this might be a bit self-serving, but I actually believe this. We need to accelerate more entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
Because that graduate tomorrow, the chances of them working for a large corporate is going to
Diminishing by
decline,
the second.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you either start your own company
Yeah.
or you join a startup, right? So, or you join the government, which governments don't want, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, all the AI initiatives in government are reducing government jobs. So all I'm highlighting here is, let's ignite more of a capitalist entrepreneurial society, because we need it, right? We
Yeah,
need
and
it
we need
more and
to do
more.
it ourselves. Absolutely. I mean, I regularly chat with people from working in large tech companies here in the US, and
Right.
it's really very little or minimal interest in our part of the world, even the Arabic language. I mean, it is a language that is, what, number 4, 5 in terms of the
Right.
number of speakers. It's probably 50th on their priority list. So if we're not
Absolutely.
building for ourselves, nobody's going to do it for us. So we have to focus
Absolutely.
building our own technology. And as you said, the Arabic language is highly nuanced. You have all those dialects. You need to cater to all of that as well. And we're best positioned to be able to leverage technology and AI so that we have, it's nuanced. It speaks the different dialects, and it's culturally relevant as well. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
we need
I
to
mean,
do
look, we could even mention a case that is not so technical, because it goes beyond language, right? It goes to culture and taste. All
Yes.
right. When you look at a company that I'm very fond of, I was a part of, Iowa, right? They're building, the digital eyewear company, really an amazing, amazing company for our region. They built a Warby Parker for the region, right? Today, I think 90+% of what they sell is their own product. They're not selling Ray-Bans. They're not selling other brands. This is their own brands, their own design brands at a price that is super competitive. They're building manufacturing facilities in the region, right? They have over 130, 140 stores now in the region,
Which
right?
markets are they in today?
Saudi, UAE, all over the Gulf. I mean, you name it. They're everywhere. The reason I mentioned them is because when you think about that type of investment, you said, how are they competing against global players? Well, you know what? They went down to the micro and said, we know what our population wants in terms of design, right? You mentioned, right, like Essilor, Luxottica is not going to build eyewear just for the Middle East.
No.
They're building to hit as many people as they can globally, right? Iowa said, no, I'm building for my consumer, right? I know the woman that wears hijab needs a certain type of loop back here, right? Like it was that specific, right? And that's the beauty, right? Is when an entrepreneur goes so deep into the region and says, I'm going to solve a very deep regional issue.
Understands the cultural nuances.
Right. And
Absolutely.
and you hit on the right point, which is, company in a $30 trillion economy is not going to worry about an economy that is, I don't know, 3 trillion across the region, right? So, and in a complex region, right? With different countries, different, not
Different
integrated, right?
currencies, not integrated.
Yeah, it's just it's too much work, right? It's too much work. You go after the low-hanging fruit, what's easier for you.
Yeah, it's a massive
So
US
that's the
market.
opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, geographically.
But by the way, we don't have to think we're alone in this. I mean, we like 500. We operate in 80 countries. We see this everywhere, right? LATAM is building for LATAM. Asia is building for Asia, right? And they're building unicorns, right? And it's totally fine, right? And there's more opportunity coming, right?
Yeah.
So I think the opportunity is there. We just have to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and this takes us back to, what we were discussing at the beginning of this conversation, the need for, like doing away with that silo mentality, protectionism.
Absolutely,
It's a massive win-win for the largest market out there and the smallest market out there. If
absolutely.
we allow for entrepreneurs to just be able to penetrate all markets freely and take advantage of whatever competitive advantage every country has to offer. So
Yeah, and you know what I'd love to see? I mean, I'd love to see countries in the region start thinking more, locally and think to themselves, I'm not saying that you don't partner with the NVIDIAs of the world, with the Microsofts of the world, but I think it'd be great to see cross-regional initiatives. I mean, I don't know, an AI institute, an AI Arab Institute, where they bring the best minds to teach our, aspiring AI experts, for the region, right?
yes,
And those collaborative approaches give scale, right? So one country doesn't have to do it on its own. They can collaborate together. By the way, AI infrastructure is a great opportunity to actually collaborate. Like,
yeah.
why not build cross-regional, data centers, right? I mean, much more scale, work on a cross-regional LLM in Arabic, and let everybody use it,
So
right?
what's happening? I mean, tell us a little bit, Amjad. There's just so much money today being spent on, and I mean the noise that we hear about the AI, the data centers,
Yes.
the policy, all of that.
There's
Is any
also
of what you're
alarm as
saying?
well. Yeah.
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 Is any of
Look,
this happening? Are they thinking, let's think regional, let's think,
look,
policy?
I think AI is really tricky because a lot of countries are not looking at it purely from an economic point of view. They're looking at it from a national security point of view, right?
Mm.
And what you're seeing today is a race for what we call sovereign AI, right? No country's going to rely on US AI. No country's going to rely on
Mm.
China AI. There was a great article about Europe, for example, saying we need to build our own AI, vertically integrated industry,
For
right?
security. Yeah.
Chips, for security. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with
Yeah.
economy.
Yeah.
It's purely for national security. By the way, I think Saudi and UAE are thinking the same thing. Like, this is a national security issue.
Yeah.
So that's what's tricky. Um, I think when you say what's happening, I look at it as parallel infrastructures. The big infrastructure game which countries are doing, and that's not really for investors. I mean, that capital is extreme, right? We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Probably will reach $1 trillion. Um, where they're building infrastructure and for their own country, right? I think where we're playing is the layer on top of that, right? The app layer, right? The application layer, and that's great. So going back to the discussion, I love what I'm seeing. Like, go ahead, build the data centers, build the infrastructure. It's great for the local startups, right? For us to have that power, because don't forget, like, Intella, for example, needs processing power to do this, Arabic speech, right? They don't want to buy it from someone else. Buy it locally or get it
Yes.
locally, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's powerful. But so look, there's always daylight to work together. So I don't think this is all or nothing. I think we have to find areas as a region where we can collaborate on AI as a region, right? And think about things regionally, right? Rather than just siloed countries, because it is to our benefit. And I hate to say this and not to get into politics, but we're moving towards a world where it's going to be very nationalistic. I mean,
Very
people are really
on every
withdrawing
level.
within. Yeah, and I think when I say nationalistic, I'm not just saying within one nation, but think about your neighborhood, right? And I think to the degree that you can collaborate on a neighborhood level with
Yes,
others, it's just much more powerful, right? Because no one country can build everything, right? And this can go to many sectors, right? But I think that's the power is, what do they call it? Frenemies, dealing with countries that are friends and enemies. I mean, we don't have to think
friends.
of everyone as an enemy, right? I mean, you can compete on certain segments, but in other segments, you could say, look, it's more powerful for us to collaborate because it's going to help us regionally.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be the day. Um, Just to switch gears a bit here, Amjad, I mean, so AI, the spending on AI data centers, all of that has been making massive noise globally, attracting attention. So has access to capital as well. So, we continue to see more money being pumped into different funds, the sovereign funds, and they have been really effective in attracting a lot of international capital because they do mandate those funds to invest locally to a certain degree. So they have been very instrumental. As you know, I'm sure as a fund you have also benefited from this. Can you tell us a little bit about access to capital in general, what you're seeing, how has it evolved over the past few years? Is there an appetite to keep injecting more? We did touch a bit about the challenges and the gap in fundraising at later stages, but let's talk from a an LP perspective or
Sure.
fundraising perspective.
Sure. So look, I think the sovereigns have played an extremely productive role. I mean, no one can deny that because they weren't LPs willing to take risk on regional funds, right? So I think they provided that first risk capital to get the industry moving, and they've done a great job, right? Whether it's the UAE, whether it's Qatar, whether it's Saudi, of course, Saudi's been really prolific at investing in venture funds to ignite their ecosystem. So hugely beneficial. We needed it because you couldn't really get to decent fund sizes without having that capital. And I think the thought process for them was very logical. They said we have to back our own funds so they can invest in our own startups, right? So we can ignite entrepreneurship in the hope that at a first level that they would get local investors to also partake, right? And I think we've seen that. We've seen that once the sovereigns came in, they provided a level of confidence
Mm-hmm. You're
for family
de-risking
offices.
yeah.
Right. I mean, when Sanabil comes in and when Jeddah comes in, SVC comes in, Mubadala comes in, QIA comes in and starts investing in their own market, it gives you confidence that,
Yes.
wow, okay, I'm in. This
Yes.
looks interesting, right? So I think they've done a great job of that. I think now, you have to see winners so it could create a flywheel. And we're starting to see unicorns. We're starting to see people make money. Lots of secondaries are happening. So people are seeing capital coming back. It took time, but it's happening. And by the way, I think it's going to accelerate. We
Is
could
it
talk
is
about
it
that.
real growth, Amjad, or is it like hyped? I mean, so you're injecting this money, and if you're an entrepreneur, it's easy for you to get access to capital. It's just there everywhere. And, you talk to different investors, the thing that they're struggling with is pipeline, right? So they might compromise a bit on the quality. So are they just spraying money? Um, and then
Yeah.
you're talking about valuations. Are those like real valuations? Is it just,
Yeah. Before we get there, I just want to close the loop on the first question.
yeah.
I think what hasn't happened yet, which I hope happens more as the track record improves, is we haven't seen international LPs enter the market in a big way, right? I can tell you it's still a challenge for local VC funds to get international capital. I'm not saying zero, but it's not happening to the degree that you would like to see, right? And I think the reality is that international investors sitting in London, New York, Singapore looks at funds all over the world and says, show me the return.
Yeah.
And until we're able to show, and I want to make sure I double underline this, DPI, not fake, not, I don't want to say fake, but not unrealized return, but like
just knowing
real,
it.
show me real money returned. We're not going to get those international LPs, right? So, and that takes time. That cycle takes time, which goes back to your point. Look, I don't think VCs are throwing money at opportunities because the reality is all of us need a track record to raise follow-on funds. So it doesn't make sense for me to do stupid investments or just, spray, because at the end of the day, if I want to raise fund 2 and fund 3 and fund 4, I have to show a return. I have to show that I've done good investments. I think
But
at the early stages,
if you're
I think
mandated to invest in local companies
no,
and you're not seeing, what do you do?
no. So I'm not mandated to spend. I'm mandated to invest. So
To invest.
they have no say on what I invest in. So let's be clear, right? So what the sovereigns tell you is, I'm giving you 10 million. I want you to put 10 million at least back into my market, right? And you say okay, and it's up to you to find those opportunities, right? Now, at the very early stage seed, you're supposed to spread. I mean,
Of
that's your
course,
job. Your
Yes.
you're
job
betting on
at
you're
seed.
betting on founders.
I
You're
mean,
not betting on
look, 500 has made a global business out of doing, what we call spray and pray, right? Which is, you're not too, you're not too picky. You look at the sector, but you're betting on people, right? And you're saying, here's a check, go build, right? Because you're hoping for that power law, right? That 1 or 2, 3% of your portfolio that skyrockets, right? And it's worked. It's worked. So I think maybe what you're talking about is, as you progress, absolutely, I agree with you. We are noticing a tighter pyramid, right? What we notice is that the winners, right, in terms of percentage, are likely less in the region, right? But what that means is I better catch those, right? And what does happen to some degree now is that you do get a crowding effect on those winners, right? And it does impact valuation. So that exists for sure,
Yeah.
right? Will that stay forever? No, I think, because one thing that is happening, and I'm starting to see it in quite a few deals, is serial entrepreneurs, right? We're seeing people who graduated from some of these larger players who exited and now are building new companies, right? The first wave was, of course, people like the Kareem mafia,
Yes.
but there are other mafias that have been created, right? Like, so, and those people are coming back, they're building new companies, and just wait till you see what happens in the next 5 years as a lot of these IPOs happen. Because once those people cash in, they're going to leave and start new companies.
Of course.
So I'm actually pretty confident that we're going to see the quality improve. And look, we have. I mean, if you asked me 10 years ago, it was really rough.
Yeah, it has come a
It has
long
come a
way.
long way,
But Amjad, I mean, you're talking about international LPs.
Yes,
what about like local money, private money?
right.
There's massive wealth, right? And that
Yeah,
this money continues to choose to invest in projects in Europe, in the US, maybe
sure.
also India and Asia. Why aren't they excited to double down on the region, or you're seeing movement
So,
there?
so I've lived this for 20 years. It's very frustrating. So I think what you see in the region is a lot of the family offices, a lot of the high net wealth individuals feel like, because their businesses are in the Middle East, that they're already highly exposed in terms of their wealth to the Middle
So it's
East.
a way to diversify, basically,
Yes.
away from the
So
region.
absolutely. So a lot of them see,
Very
when they
interesting.
get cash from their business, they're saying, I'm not going to double down again here,
Makes
right?
sense.
I'm gonna hedge it
I'm
somewhere
going
else.
to, which, I don't know if I blame them, right? I mean, they're hedging, right? They're hedging their bet. I'm fine with that. I think what you are seeing is, and let's not forget that the VC asset class is probably the riskiest, right?
Risky.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're not going to put a significant amount of your wealth there. You're going to put, 5%, 10% if you're aggressive, right? I think we are seeing that actually. I think we're seeing people now say, what do you mean this company is worth 3 billion? They really can't believe it. Like I have these conversations and a lot of them, believe it or not, are just starting to be aware that this digital sector might have something. And they're seeing these companies go public this year, and honestly, they're in shock.
I mean, one way they can
And
do this, and we're not seeing much of it, is embedding entrepreneurship or corporate accelerators, let's say, right? So they have these massive businesses. Why aren't they reaching out to entrepreneurs to embed them throughout their,
I'm
supply
not a fan.
chain? You're not a fan of
No.
that?
I'm not a fan. I mean, look, I think corporate VCs are very tricky. And the reality is you will have adverse selection, in my opinion, because a true founder who wants to build is not going to want to be tied down to a corporate,
And
right?
they're not going to
And
understand the
is not going to
language
go
that
with
he's speaking.
they're not going to understand the language. They don't want to be tied to a corporate who is in the same business, right? Who says, "Oh, I like this. I'm going to buy it out," right? Or, So I find CVCs very tricky, right? And frankly, let's be honest. There's very few corporates in the region that have that scale to do that. What I would argue, which I would love to see more of, and again, it's
Acquisition.
self-serving in a way. No, like invest in VCs. Like, why not invest in VCs? You get a lot of insight. You see what's happening in the startup space. And look, I think what you see in the region is a lot of people who have money tend to feel like I'm just going to go direct. And it's like, look, it's not that easy.
Yes.
Right? Like investing with a manager is actually pretty smart. And by the way, it's really interesting because not only is it smart, you can actually cherry pick as the companies scale because of the growth capital gap. Because what do I do when I'm doing a $50 million round in one of my companies later? I'm going to go to my LP base and say, would you like to put in some money? So you can actually catch some winners later. And I'll tell you, without naming names, some of these high net wealth family offices who did that made a lot of money because they invested with VCs. And then when the company scaled and the companies needed more capital, they went to their LPs and said, would you like to co-invest? And some of them did, and
what was the return? How many X's?
I'm talking big.
Wow.
We're talking 20, 30, 40, 50X, right?
Wow.
I forgot which family office in Saudi invested in Kareem, I believe in their A or B round. And that one investment, I forgot. I mean, it was tremendous. It was a 50X. I forgot which company, but they did extremely well. So there's others. There's others now in some of the unicorns, which I can't mention, but there are others. So look, I don't want to seem like I'm against CVCs. I think if you have a very particular category, like I could think of one company that does it really well, like CCC does it really well because they're doing it in construction, right? Which is very specific, right?
Okay.
And frankly, VCs are not investing in construction tech, right?
That's just
so
true.
I think healthcare might be another interesting one. So I think there are pockets of this, but what I've seen more of is like, we want to set up a CVC so we can like have people come and build for us to take them over, right? So you end up having an adverse selection. Like those founders who want to build are not going to want to do that.
What about angel investing? How have you seen angel investing evolve in the region in the last maybe 10 years?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think angel investors are doing a really great job because frankly, they're everywhere and they're taking risk. I teach angel investment in Saudi and with our partnership with Sanabil. And so I teach angel investors, and I also teach VCs. My angel classes are amazing. I mean, these are very clued in investors. They have capital. They're spraying it.
As they should.
They get to see, as they should. They get to see startups very early because it's through network, friends and family.
Right.
They're getting really smart at collaborating. And we have to take some credit for that. We're building all these great alumni that are talking and are sharing opportunities. And I want to mention one point about angels, and I tell them this all the time. I say, you guys should have the best DPI in the region because you come in super early and then you can sell like secondary in the A, in the B, because we're buying from you, right? Like we don't mind buying secondaries at a discount. Right. And I tell them, take advantage of, we hardly see around today, especially at the B, that doesn't have a secondary component.
Nice.
Right? So you'll have a primary component, and then you'll have investors saying, look, we're willing to buy another 5-10 million at a 25% discount. So I tell angels, take advantage. You already made 20x. Take it and run. So actually angels should have phenomenal DPI and they have better exit opportunities, frankly, than we do, because we have to wait much longer and we have bigger stakes.
Right.
Their stakes are small, so they can exit, right? And some of them do. And I'll tell you, I've seen angels make 10, 15, 20, 30x, by the B. So it's great. So I think angel investors are active. I'd love to see it persist. I'd love to see them spray. I do meet some angels sometimes who believe they can pick winners. And I tell them, I give them a statistic, right? The best VC statistically, I think, has picked winners 6% of the time. Okay? That means out of all their investments, only 6% have been winners, right? So, and by the way, I'm talking about the creme de la creme, like not, the normal VC is maybe like 3%, 4%. So for you as an angel to say, I'm going to put $100,000, $200,000 in a startup, I really get nervous. I say, listen, take the 100 and put 25 and 4. Right?
So that's your advice, smaller tickets. What are you seeing in terms of ticket sizes?
For sure. I think the 10-25 is sort of the norm.
10-25.
Yeah, for the angel.
Yes.
Each angel investor, right?
$10,000 to $25,000 per ticket?
Yes. Okay. Yes, per ticket. Per investment. Right?
Per investment, yeah.
And how many investments a year do you advise them to make?
Look, if we're talking about a professional, and like when I mean professional angel, like someone who's a lawyer, a doctor, I would say they're putting in 100,000 into the market every year, maybe 150. Some of the more aggressive ones have like 200-300 to put into the market. What I would suggest is, if you only have 100,000 to invest, you need to spray to 10 investments, right? But if you're someone who says, I'm going to do a program of 100 every year, then you could do 20, 25, and do like 4 or 5 investments a year, right? Have that cadence, right? I would suggest a cadence, right? I don't suggest saying, I have only $100,000 in my savings and I'm just going to do startups. I'm going to spend it all this year. That doesn't make sense. What you'd like to do is have this look, even if you could do 50,000 a year, do 50,000 a year, but keep it consistent, right? You'd like to have a portfolio of 20, 30, 40 investments. If you really want to get a winner out of it, right? So that, and look, don't forget, you're coming in at the ground level.
Super early.
Yeah. Your cap on your safe, or KISS, I should say, given that's our document as 500, should be about 10 million max, right? The cap on that safe. So you're very early. So that's, it's an interesting time to do that, but spray it. Don't think you're going to pick a winner. It's very challenging.
Amjad, this has been amazing conversation. We can go on for hours talking about it,
Probably, yeah.
talking about the different opportunities, challenges. There's so much happening there. We did touch on, going global out of the region. Is it possible to dream about maybe seeing, 5, 6, 10 companies scale globally soon out of the region? Is this something that, that can happen?
I think for sure we can, right? And I think what I'm hoping happens is as some of our great companies start going public, right, that they start thinking beyond the region, right?
Mm,
Like, you know, uh, why not for one of our companies that's public on Tadawul to raise a few billion and go acquire a company in Latin America or like Europe?
yeah,
Why not? They
yeah,
do it all the time, right? So I think we can see that. I think we require, gutsy capital. We need to have a capital raising mechanism that is significant because you need significant dollars to do that. And I think it can be done. Um, I think there is potential for some of the startups now that are scaling to eventually go global.
yeah,
I think within the next 10 years, if we get this AI infrastructure effective, I think you will see it and you can see it. I think for that, I would love to see more bridges created, right? Like you guys are trying to do it, in
yes,
Vika. I try to do it a lot. Why are bridges important? It's because it's important for our founders to get that insight, right? To talk to people in these big markets, whether they be China, whether they be America, whether they be in France, Germany, wherever. I think it's good for them to get in touch with founders in these large markets, see what they're doing, talk to them,
exposure is
collaborate with them, exposure. And look, I think as you expand globally, a lot of things open up, right? Capital opens up, talent opens up.
absolutely,
If you're a company that you know uh, comes from the region and advances to the U.S., you can hire top talent in the U.S. Hopefully, if you have the right amount of capital, right?
right,
And actually, before I go, I should mention a company that we just exited as 500 called Play AI. I talked to you about this in a prior conversation. I mean, these were two Egyptian founders who started a company in Egypt. Said, you know what, this is a global company. It was a voice AI company. Took it to Silicon Valley, raised money there. We were one of their checks. We invested across multiple funds, and they just sold to Meta. Um,
Are
what a
these
success story,
are these companies
right?
infrastructure or application layer? Like, is there a pattern for seeing
It's
like these big
application layer.
their applications?
This one
Okay.
was an application letter, but it was obviously tech that was good enough for Meta to say we need it, and that Meta could have probably built it, but maybe it would have taken 18 to 24 months.
Hmm.
So they said, no, let's buy this out,
Hmm.
right, for
Hmm.
a few hundred million, right? So I think there are opportunities, right?
yeah. So if you're,
But I would love to see what I would love to see is something grander than that, which is I would love to see like some of our fantastic companies that again like that scale end up saying, well, look, you are actually the best at this business model globally. Why don't we help you acquire a company in the US so you can expand there? Why don't we help you get into Europe? Right? I think that's going to happen. I mean, it will happen, and that's going to be exciting to see. And I have no doubt it will happen. But look, it's going to take time, and I think, and again, I don't think this should be a measure of our success, right? I think a measure of our success is if we continue to churn out amazing companies that go public in the region, right? And I'll tell you, we didn't talk about going public, but it's looking really bright. And that's going to drive, obviously, DPI for funds,
That's good
which
news.
drives returning money to investors, which makes
Right.
them invest in more
Right.
funds, right?
Right.
Which
Right.
makes them invest in more startups, right? So
Right.
there's the flywheel. Always talk about the flywheel, but it does other things, right? It increases M&A, right?
yeah,
Reem, you mentioned it. It puts pressure on corporates,
yes,
traditional corporates, to do
Hmm.
more
Hmm.
M&A.
Yes.
because now they have to compete, right?
Yeah.
It does a lot of things, right? This going public. And what it does is it gives an opportunity for retail investors who still dominate our markets. I mean, we forget that, I think the Dow is still 50 to 60% retail investors. It's not like the US where, 80, 90% is institutional.
Yeah.
Our markets are still retail involvement. They haven't had a chance to invest in tech because tech has been primarily private market. So now as these companies go public, I think you're going to see a great reception of retail investors who say, wow, now we have the digital space we can invest in because, the markets right now are dominated by energy, banks,
Yes.
Now
Hopefully
you'll
we
see
get there.
like,
Yeah.
absolutely. So for me, this IPO capital markets really unlocks a lot of things. And once we do that, I think we'll get there. You'll start seeing more dynamicism, not only in our markets, but as you said, companies thinking bigger and let's go global, right? So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Amjad, in closing, any practical advice for founders and aspiring investors in the region?
So look, I love our founders. They have so much grit. If I had to use one word, I would say grit is the word. And there's a great book, by the way, called Grit, if you want to read it. And I believe in it a lot. As a Palestinian American who came here and saw his grandfather, build a business from nothing, grit really does a lot, right? So I think our founders have a lot of grit. So I just tell them, keep building. Our founders face so many obstacles, but they keep going. And I think the quality of our founders as they continue to scale is just so good because they've been through so many challenges that they've been hardened by it, and I think they do a great job. So I keep building and stay hungry and have that grit. For investors, I would say, don't miss out on this opportunity. I think finally we're at a place today where the exit markets are opening. Secondaries, by the way, we didn't go deep in that, but I'm seeing so many secondaries, which again means exits. People can sell. So I think that liquidity is really going to drive a lot more investor interest, right? Because the concern for investors was we're going to be locked up and we're never going to see our money. I think that's changed and it's changing very rapidly. So I would say pay attention to this space. Take a chance on good.
Join networks, take Amjad's
Join
class.
networks.
Yeah.
Take my class.
Yes.
And happy to talk. By the way, happy to talk to any founder and investor. I'm as Reem said, I'm really happy to always give back to ecosystem. But I think this is the right time. I mean, a lot of infrastructure has been built, and I think this is the time where it's going to start paying off.
Amazing. Ending on this wonderful note, Amjad, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. Very insightful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Reem, and thank you, Ramzi. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.